welcome everyone to Muslim Street. This is NYLA. We are going to be interviewing someone super exciting today. I've been really looking forward to this episode. So we have Dr. NYLA. She's from NYLA Productions. She's a doctor. She's a director. She just has a lot going on in her life. So I'm super excited. NYLA, do you mind introducing yourself? Our guests would love to get to know you.
Of course. Hello, and thank you so much for having us on the show. We're so excited. We love the Muslim Street. We love what you do. You're a force, and you're a woman who is breaking the norms of what a Muslim woman is stereotyped as, which is great for us because at New York LA Production, which is our production company, it's a nonprofit 501c, and what we do is we produce independent films and other types of production and promotion, specifically focusing on women, female, Muslim, and MENA, and Sama voices. MENA is Middle East, North African, for those of you who don't know, and South Asian, Muslim American voices is what Sama stands for. So we are a minority in this sort of American diaspora, and surprisingly, we just haven't had the opportunity to really share our voices and our different perspectives through film and media, and that's kind of what we try and promote.
I absolutely love that, and that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to get Dr. NYLA on our show. We've obviously interviewed people from all over the world, all different topics that have to do literally with the Muslim Street. But I think Dr. NYLA is someone that I really sought out because I was like, I want to show that Muslim women can be multifaceted, involved in philanthropy, someone who can own their own company, involved in various capacities, as well as have like a professional or like corporate background. And I think Dr. NYLA obviously exudes that. I want to actually learn a little bit more about your company, what you guys do.
So we do a variety of different things, but I'll start with some of our previous films and projects so that you'll have kind of an idea of all the sort of different things that we do. So for example, I'm an executive producer on a film called The Persian Version, which won Sundance in 2023 with director Mariam Keshavarz, who is of Iranian-American descent. And that film then was bought by Sony Picture Classics and Stage 6 for full theatrical release, both domestically and internationally, and now it's housed on Netflix. So go watch it when you have a chance. So that's one of our first films, and as you can see, that film, although it was lauded, applauded throughout all of the critics and things like that, deals with an Iranian-American female who's LGBTQIA, and all of that sort of stuff that we can talk about. So I think that it's really important that we sort of talk about that category of people. We're not just one. We're actually multifaceted, and we are part of such a variety of diverse women that make up women as a one number episode, or whatever. And we want to make sure that people understand that.
Yeah, we're going to pause for just one moment. It looks like we're having technical difficulties. Give us one moment. Okay, perfect. We apologize for that. So my next question is actually, there seems to be a lack of Muslim representation, especially when it comes to females in the media. We're talking about journalism, movies, TV shows, media altogether. And I just wanted to, kind of get your thoughts on how we can address that and change that. Since both of us are in the media in very different capacities, how is your company and how are you individually kind of
it's surprising, and it's not really proud of that we are unique in what we do in this niche market. We wish that there was so many more companies that were focusing on Muslim, female, South Asian voices in America, but there just aren't. There is some research done that shows that although we make up such a large percentage of the world as well as in America, we only represent 2% of characters in film and TV.
And
that's just
it's
horrendous, frankly speaking, because
that
2% is also
a lot
of women,
and usually
very stereotypical.
Either we
are
so
oppressed,
right?
We are victims that need to be saved by Western media, right? Or we are terrorists, or we are pedestaled by our own culture, where we're like godly and like
just can't
do any wrong.
And
none of those is actually what a Muslim woman is. That's not what any Muslim woman is that I know.
No, I agree. And I think we don't have a lot of South Asians specifically, but Muslim people in general within arts and humanities. I think it's really awesome that your company and you as an individual are trying to address that. How do you think humanities and arts tends to narratives in society, especially with what you're discussing?
Absolutely. Like think about any story that or a movie that has touched you,
and I bet that it
something,
especially
might have changed your perspective about something, especially if it was about a culture that wasn't yours,
people that isn't
or
you, or you're
people that isn't
all
you,
those
or you're not familiar with.
All those things. Narrative is like a great way of making change in a small and subtle but very powerful way, and I think it's really important that people understand that. The unfortunate thing is that in our culture, arts and humanities are negated as, just a hobby, right? Or you can be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, but do that on the side if you must, as opposed to really encouraging our youth to do this as a career. Lucky for us in America, we kind of get to bypass some of that. And now you do see a lot more young Muslim women and men trying to involve themselves in all the different aspects of film, including directing, producing, writing, acting, and otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that we really need to address is we need to improve. We need to use both of our platforms in order to, cultivate a culture where Muslim women are viewed as multifaceted, ambitious people, individuals who aren't subservient to, let's say, like the Western patriarchy. And we also have to make sure that women themselves understand that when they see other women in media, it's not something that's like, an idea that's far away from them. It's something that's very, I wouldn't say easily done. I don't think that's the right way to put it, but it's not something that is out of reach. I think that's the best way to put it. So I think it's important that, both the Muslim Street, as, one of the co-hosts, as well as, Dr. NYLA, I think both of us need to use our platforms in order to, motivate individuals as well as help them understand that there's a necessity for women in media. Because when we do not have representation in media, what essentially happens is we're looking at Western, non-Muslim, non-Middle Eastern, non-North African, and non-South Asians as examples. And I think we kind of have created our own subculture outside of media. But without that representation, I think, women tend to lack the examples that are necessary in order to move forward in life. And I think that was important for our generation. But when we look at future generations, we don't want them bumping into like the same issues that they've had in the past. What were you about to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you think about change, it's always important to realize that sometimes it's not instant gratification. In fact, most of the time, if you want to make real and lasting change, it takes small, tiny steps where everybody has to do the thing that they can do. You know what I mean? Hina, this is what you do. And you have a different type of a platform where you are shining light on particular aspects of Muslim culture, being a Muslim woman, and how that, informs all the things that you discuss. And every Muslim woman who's out there, and Muslim men and non-Muslims, frankly, have to understand that they all have to be a part of this change as we move forward. And every small change, every little short film or indie feature film that gets an accolade, that is seen by somebody, is a really important way of moving the needle to make those sort of changes. Our parents did it for us. Sometimes we don't understand that when we think about like generational gap and like sometimes those difficulties in understanding, but they did a lot for us in a different capacity to where we're here now and we can do what we're doing now. You can't imagine, your mom could never have imagined doing a podcast or being, you know, live streaming or making a movie or acting in a film and those sort of things. And really forget about all that, but just discussing their heritage in any of those forms or their culture or their religion and not feeling like they need to hide that, things like that. They did that. They did a bunch of those steps for us, and here we are. But we have to remember that we are actually setting up the stage for the next generation to take those further steps and make those other changes, which is where narrative film does that. These are small, tiny changes, but everybody who sees a film that shows a Muslim character that they can relate to
in a positive light.
Correct. Yeah. And I'll take that back, Hina, not even in a positive light, because not humans are at their core flawed.
Right.
Right. And it's okay if we show a woman being flawed and also normalize that women are not perfect. Muslim women are not perfect. We make mistakes just like you. That's just like you, just like men make mistakes, just like non-Muslim women make mistakes, just like XYZ cultural women make mistakes. And it's important to show all of those facets because in that vulnerability is the humanity that binds us.
No, I absolutely agree. And I wanted to kind of hone in on your, production company.
Sure.
How is your company specifically kind of addressing the issues that we've been talking about in terms of having more Muslim, representation and female representation as well?
So, for example, in the film, The Persian Version, it's a film about a Muslim woman and how she interacts with her family in the 80s here in America and what it's like to be LGBTQIA from that culture, but also looking at it from the perspective of her Muslim culture and her family and what that looks like. So there's always this double angle. We have created a couple of other movies right now, which are actually premiering around the US. One is called The School Duel. This film centers around gun violence in America and gun control and what that looks like when we take it too far. That film is a social impact film as well that is going to at least create discussion and change the narrative of how those topics are discussed. We just finished another film called American Fabric, which we're very proud of. It's in post-production now and hopefully will be in the festival circuit before the summer is through. That film is a really interesting film, which I personally relate to on various levels, which is a film about a hijabi who wants to stop wearing a headscarf and another girl who wants to start wearing a headscarf. And we follow them throughout their day.
I love the duality of that.
Yeah, it's feminism in both its forms. My body, my choice doesn't mean that, oh, you've got the right to take it off, but it means that you have the right to cover it up too if you want. And it's really important to realize that in freedom of choice is every choice that one might want to make about their body, not just the ones that you think are okay, And so we follow them throughout their day until they come to the quiet resignation of making their own decision. But we see that a lot of those social interactions, family interactions, friend interactions that they have are almost exactly the same, despite the fact that these are completely opposite decisions. And that this decision is a small decision when you think about it in the sort of grand scheme of things, whether you show your hair or not, who cares, but at the same time, it becomes such a big decision, choice, not just for you, but for everybody around you. And isn't it universally true that as a woman, no matter what that choice is, people feel that they have ownership over your agency and they don't. And I think that's the most important part. And what we did is we wanted to show that film through a female lens. And so we have a majority female cast and crew and an all-female head of department, which if you don't know film, that's extremely difficult to do. And most of them were local in our area, which again, is like really making it harder and harder and more challenging to get those things right. But we were so happy that we had that. It was a BIPOC crew. We had a variety of different ages and of just every diversity you could consider. And I think that really informed the film and made it better. It elevated the movie because everybody brought something personal to the film, which also added to its universality. So, we're really proud of it, and we hope that, you guys get to see it soon.
No, I love that. Mashallah. And actually, one thing that I wanted to ask is, being in this industry, it's super competitive. I think you're definitely coming from a background that's very different than the average producer, director, however you want to put it. What are some challenges that you have, kind of faced in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, stereotypes, number one, right? Whether it's from my own culture, and this is, the double-edged sword that Muslim women face, right? Is we face a patriarchy from the inside that's telling us not to do this, not to do that. Make sure that you show Islam in the most perfect light. Do not embarrass us or disgrace our men or blah, blah, blah. We're not oppressed, like, etc. And then on the other side, you face the patriarchy of the Western world that wants to save you, right? Or wants to just believe the version that they have, which is this person is oppressed. She's being forced to do this. We need to save this woman and liberate her. And frankly speaking, neither one of those allows for a woman to have space to talk about herself.
Right.
There's so many other men who are speaking for Muslim women and not really letting all of us speak for ourselves and have that kind of point of view, which is really what agency is about. So as a Muslim woman, certainly wearing a hijab, and I'm really one of maybe 3 hijabi director producers that I know.
Oh, wow.
Very, very small set of people there, all of who are incredibly talented. I'm really happy to be in that group of women, but it's small. And so it's a unique challenge because people are intrigued, but also bring their own stereotypes to the table. And so part of what I do is also having to sort of sift through all of that. And everybody says, oh, and I think so many people have had this, oh, your English is so good,
or right.
Oh, you said a bad word. Wow, I've never heard a hijabi do that. And things like this, like, oh, you're okay.
So you're breaking stereotypes in what you're doing.
Just by being
right
alive,
being
existing.
Authentic.
Yeah. And that's so important. Coming into this field as a second career has been interesting. And Hollywood is certainly not like an easy pool to wade into. And I have been really, really lucky and blessed really to have been able to make such strides in a short period of time. And that has opened doors for me, but also allows me to remember to open doors for other people. Hollywood they always say they're gatekeepers, right? But it's really important that we stop being gatekeepers and start becoming bridge builders. And I think that when I see Muslim women who are doing well, women who are doing well in general in the film industry, it's so important to remember and really tell yourself, this is good for all of us. Every moment, every movement forward helps all of us to move forward as a collective. And I think once you can remember that, those challenges become easier. And the things that you want to do become easier because I know my purpose. I know what I can change with this creative talent, which I also really enjoy. So, I mean, there's nothing better than that.
No, I absolutely agree. And actually, I'm glad that you brought up these points. And the reason I say that is I think it was several months ago that Malik, my co-host, had reached out to me and said, hey, we should definitely do a podcast under, the Muslim Street brand. It was something started by him. And I was very nervous at the time. But one thing that I kind of realized is even though I do have an aversion normally to social media and things like that and putting myself out there, I kind of realized that the lack of representation, if I don't take the initiative to be part of the Muslim Street and, contribute to journalism, contribute to news stories, kind of have more control over the narrative that a lot of people in the West have about Islam, then I'm part of the problem, right? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So one of the reasons that I ended up, joining the Muslim Street, especially as a female, co-host, is because I kind of realized that Islam is being put under a terrible light. We see it in terms of foreign policy. We see it in terms of journalism. We see it in terms of media. We see it in terms of TV shows. And if we don't like what we see, I think it should motivate and inspire people to kind of take the initiative and say, you know what? I don't like what I see in media, so I need to take the initiative to go ahead and change that narrative and show the Western world and the rest of the Islamic world, this is what Islam is, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, and this is what it takes to be like a multifaceted woman. So absolutely, love what, NYLA said. And I also wanted to kind of get into your personal life. It looks like you're juggling a multitude of things. You're a mother, you're a wife, you are a doctor, you also have this production company. Tell me about how you balance everything, your accomplishments, your grievances.
Yeah. So I do a lot, and I know. So let me start by I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm a double board certified internal medicine physician as well as a gastroenterologist, which took many, many years. And I am a foreign medical graduate. So all of you FMGs out there who are watching, you can do it. Medicine itself is super hard. It's multi-years to get there. And I love what I do. Even as a gastroenterologist, let's say 1 in 10 of us are women. So we're already a minority here. But I really enjoy doing that job, and I enjoy being able to make those changes and save lives. And I work even now. It's not that I change careers. I do both as a physician as well as this creative process, which started off as I'm going to say passion, not hobby, but a passion to write and direct and create, and has sort of gotten to this point where we're able to actually make those changes. I have a couple of kids. I'm married now for more than 15 years, and a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. They're boys, and they are avid soccer players. So we do travel soccer. We're a travel soccer family. And my husband's also a physician. So we juggle crazy schedules. But I think people go, well, where do you find the time? And it's like, I don't think that I find the time. I think that when you have a passion for something, you make the time, right? And I think to your point about people seeing problems, then complaining about problems, and then that's it, right? There should be a third step to that, which is then be the change that you want to be, right? It's a cliche for a reason, because it's really true, right? And it doesn't mean, I think, that people have to understand. I do a lot, but that's just that's my pathology and my personality. I really enjoy doing more and more and more. I never feel like I'm doing enough, and I always feel like I should be doing much more. People are like, "Oh, you do something." I'm like, really? Because I think I should be doing more. It's a problem, but not one that I recommend for everybody, because I think people are different and they have their own levels of ability, desire, and place in the world. So I think that small change is good change, and small steps are a great way to be a gateway into getting bigger, making those bigger steps. I think what happens a lot of times is people get deterred. They're like, oh, how can I do that? I can't, it's too hard. It's whatever, if you want to be an actor, just send a self-tape. You know what I mean? You won't get the job, no big deal. But if you just take that step, you will realize that it wasn't that hard. And I think a lot of times we make a mountain out of a molehill. We believe that those steps are harder than they really are. And they're not. They get easier as you get into practice of taking them. And for me, I think I just juggle much better now than I used to. And I think that's just a part of who I am, but also I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that.
What about time management skills, balancing everything? And we would love to know that, because I think that's one of the questions that I get from a lot of people. Is they're like, I would love to be in social media. I would love to pursue my passions or do X, Y, and Z, but I just don't have enough time. And I think, coming from someone who does it all, how do you kind of fit everything in? Do you have any tips or tricks for, the Muslim women and men that are watching?
Trick number 1, lots of caffeine. That's very important. I'm joking, sort of. I do drink a lot of caffeine, but I think that finding solutions that do save you time, and multitasking is very important. So I'll give you an example. When I go to the gym, I also take a face mask and a foot mask And I make sure that when I go into the sauna for the 10 minutes, then I'm doing a face mask while this is the time that I have for self-care, you know, or if I'm driving to a job, which is 30 minutes away. Audiobooks are my best friend, and I learn so much and grow so much from audiobooks, and it allows me to spend that time in the car in a much more productive way. I try to really pre-plan everything. I'm meticulous.
Do you do like the to-do list and the planner and the
I
calendars?
Do. Well, I mean, we have, for example, if you were able to see like our family Google Calendar, like I think most people will just hide under a rock from the beginning. There's so many colors on it. And we have about 6 different calendars. And when it comes to social media, then I have a completely different calendar, which brings in all of the things that we do here for New York, LA production versus my job, versus my family, versus soccer. I'll give you an example of this weekend. Okay. We were premiering The School Duel, one of our films, at Sunscreen Festival in St. Pete. I had
amazing movie, by the way.
Thank you.
Just want to throw that in.
Thank you. I had soccer for the 5-year-old in the morning on Saturday. My son had to go to Orlando for soccer.
Oh, wow.
So we dropped him in the morning to go to Orlando with one of his soccer friends. Then I took my son for soccer. Then I came home. I had about 2 hours where I got ready for sunscreen. My husband got home. I said, bye, see you. They went to Orlando to meet my son there. I went to sunscreen where I attended a Women in Film brunch, which is a wonderful, if you're into movies and you want to be part of film and TV, find your local Women in Film chapter and join them. They're just a wonderful resource. We're one of the committee members as well, and we're really just so proud to be part of them. And really, it's a great resource. They had a brunch, and then we went to a short film block with some of the interns that work with us. One of them was showing a film there in the college short block. Did like 3 red carpets while we were there. And then our film premiered. And then as soon as the film was done, I bounced to Orlando, which is like a 2-hour drive, and got there, met all of my family. So I'm present, and everybody went to sleep. And then and my husband went to work in the morning. And then we went to 2 more soccer games, and then came back to here to get ready for our podcast. And here we are. So that's a lot of stuff to do. And then there was about 6 emails that were super important that were answered in that time.
Right.
It's a lot, but you really have to find the thing that you care about. And if I didn't care about the film industry and representing Muslims in the film industry and increasing and improving the type of Muslim representation in the film industry, I don't think that I could do this. Right? I don't think that you could do this if you didn't care about this thing. So I think that the most important caveat or piece of advice is to find the thing that you're passionate about, that gives you joy, that gives you energy when you do it, and see how you can make that work towards changing the narrative of Muslims. And you can. I'll tell you, a very, very long time ago, I went to an ISNA conference. And one of the speakers there was telling us about what you should do. And somebody asked the question, like, what kind of change should I make? And the speaker said, you should make every change that you can make. And I think that's very, very important, right? It doesn't matter if you're an artist or a lawyer or a doctor. You don't have to change careers to become a scholar or a major advocate. Don't change careers. Find the thing you can do in your space and make space for yourself within that space. Make change where you can. And I think that if everybody did that, wouldn't that make major change?
Oh, I absolutely agree. Because I think like we're not basically saying you have to, become a director, you have to start a production company, you have to be a journalist or have a podcast or anything of that nature. Yeah. But sometimes to have, women in social media, to have them as leaders in the community, to do more philanthropy, to kind of have more of a voice is actually part of our religion. And we have to remember that. So I think, culturally, I know sometimes things are looked down on, but at the end of the day, we can't look at culture. We have to look at religion, which Islam we're very, very, humbled to be part of, because our religion actually teaches us that women were, some of the first people who were to accept Islam, to, advocate for it. And we were actually told to be in, places of leadership, to have like political discourse and things of that nature. So even if you don't want to be in media per se, in the capacity that Dr. Nyla and I are, I think it's super important to look at your community and say, how can I make a difference? Even if it's something very tiny, start a book club. I think it's important to maybe like even be an author. You can, become like a social media influencer. There's just so many different ways. And it doesn't have to, necessarily be something negative or bad the way that culture sometimes makes it out to be. We can take things that are stigmatized and make it a positive avenue to put women, especially Muslim women, in a very positive light. So I think that's like super important. And that actually brings me into my next question. What do you think is the best way for Muslims, women especially, to get involved? Like call to action per se.
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. So dawah is really important. It's part of what we do. Now you're breaking a stereotype by getting away, by doing a podcast, which is not like dawah boy culture.
Right. It's very different.
But it is still dawah girl culture. Let's call it that. You know what I mean? Like dawah girl culture should be a thing. All right. And I think we should hashtag dawah girl culture. Okay. But like, like even if it's just speaking to your neighbor, you don't know how little people know about Islam. And they only know sometimes what they see on TV. So we're trying to change what they see on TV. But it's also important that in real life matters, right? Social media matters, yes. TV matters, yes. But do you know what is the thing that makes the greatest change is interactions in real life. And if you can have more of those that are good within the people in your community, then you will be making change just right there. And I think that's super important. Calls to action include join a giving circle, find a charity. If you're too busy because you are a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or whatever you're doing,
or even social media shy. There's a lot of people who don't want to put their face out there, personal life out there. There's different avenues.
Find a charity where you can put that expendable income and make a change that you feel good about. It's not selfish to find a place that gives you joy while you're making change. We have so many avenues that we look at. You can go to our website. We have services that we provide. Any kind of community outreach is so important. So if you have other people like myself in your community who are making movies, short films, students who are making student films, give them an avenue, throw them a party, show their film, let other people engage in that film. And especially those who are not of the culture or people you believe would really find something interesting or nuanced in a film like that. There are organizations that go into depth into these sorts of things. We are one of them. We provide speaking engagements. So invite us, let us come and talk to your community and tell them a little bit about what we do and sort of let them explore the multifacets of Muslim women.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think networking is also super important because I think, coming into the podcast culture, I was really intimidated. I didn't research or anything. I just kind of full-fledged went into it without any experience, without any research. And now that I'm kind of in it, the best way that I've been able to kind of cultivate it and grow is by networking. So I think like the more people that you meet, especially diverse people, don't just stick to your community or your group of friends, put yourself out there. Like I had to literally message Dr. Nyla and be like, hey, I love your work. I think you're phenomenal. I'd love to have you on your podcast. And now we've built this connection to where we have learned and grown from each other because we're both in media, but we're coming from very, very different angles. And I think, what I really implore like the audience to do, reach out to people, even people that you think are like really inspirational or someone that you're like, oh, they would never message me back. There's literally foreign policy analysts and journalists and professors that I've messaged and, they have like hundreds and thousands of followers and I'll send them a message and they'll say, hey, I would love to work with you. I would love to be interviewed. I would, I really admire what you do. And the reason I'm bringing up, these specific examples is when we think that something is impossible, you never know what path has already been built for you. and you really have to kind of put yourself out there, meet new people, be inspired by them, inspire other people as well.
Yeah.
And don't ever like underestimate yourself. I think being confident is huge. I think if you lack confidence and you're like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I have the capacity to do X, Y, and Z, you're really going to get intimidated. And the reason that doesn't serve you and this, community per se is, essentially you are doing a disservice by not letting your talents kind of, flourish. If you have like intellect, if you have knowledge about certain things, if you have special skills, but you're not confident, you're too shy, you're afraid to put yourself out there, you're intimidated, you feel like people may not want to network with you or whatever the case may be, it's a disservice to you, of course, but that's not the most important thing. It's a disservice to the community as well. There's a multitude of people who have laughed at me and said, oh, you have a podcast, whatever, that's fine. But there's also a multitude of people that are like, thank you so much for doing this interview. I learned so much about various different countries, or, various different topics, or I was able to, put my mind to something that I wouldn't have normally done. So I say, network, put yourself out there, and definitely find something that you really, truly love and you're passionate about. Because sometimes, it's not profitable. Sometimes it's not monetary. Sometimes you're going to have to put in a lot of hours. You don't know what direction it's going to take. If you're doing it, simply for clout, as they say, or fame or money or things of that nature, you're not going to make it very far. But if you have passion for something, you're going to fight through and through. At the end of the day, like when you are looking at it from like like an expendable manner, meaning like, it's an exchange per se. I think you're going to fail very quickly or you're going to give up very quickly. But I think when you put your heart and mind into something and you're like, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to create a path, even if it doesn't exist. That's actually why I really wanted to bring Dr. NYLA on the show. There isn't a path right now necessarily for women, Muslim women as directors and in production companies, but she's creating a path. And that's the thing. Sometimes the path isn't already there. We already know that, especially coming from South Asian backgrounds, if you want to be an attorney, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to be a doctor, that path has, it's not even just there. It's almost forced on us to a certain degree. I'm not saying don't get into those avenues or like those careers by any means, but there's certain things that there's a lot of Muslim women who, they long to do something per se, and they're not able to because they're like, there's no path for us. I don't know how I'm going to, do X, Y, and Z. Maybe you're going to be the one that initiates that path.
Yeah. You'll be surprised, how many people we've met through just what we do,
Right.
And like you're saying, like that path is very, very new. And I do want to say that, there are people out there who have already started that, for years, but it's still a shallow path, and it requires a lot more women to have walked on it before it becomes a road, there are so many professors out there. I want to give a shout out to Iman Zawari from Gainesville, University of Florida. She's a professor there and the director of Americanish, which is a short feature film currently available on streaming services. And I reached out to her when I first started doing this, and she was such an asset, such a helpful person. Lena Khan, one of the directors in Hollywood, who is a hijabi as well, was willing to meet me, talk to me. Mariam Kashvar is my director of the Persian version, as well as one of our pilots that I have a shopping agreement with her. She is just a wonderful person. I slid in the DM and I was like, hey, would you come and meet me for coffee? And she was so generous with her time. And I think that when we talk about making change, certainly it's hard, right? But you can do, if you are smart about it, you can do both passion as well as success. Starving artists are lovely, but you can also be a wonderful change-making artist that makes money. Frankly speaking, don't believe that doesn't happen. It does. And there's so many places that you can make those small changes. We pitched to a local charity, 200 Muslim Women Who Care. They were wonderful. We won our pitch. And I was really hesitant when we went there because I was like, I don't know if they're going to really be interested. Arts and culture is hard to get people motivated behind. Sometimes it's like, okay, a charity school, you help young children who are orphans, then yeah, we'll give you, but otherwise, what's arts and culture? You know, and it's really important to see that kind of a change happen within even our personal, in my own community, where A, we won, and then B, you'd be surprised how many Muslim women who came up to us afterwards were not only encouraging and relating to the story of American fabric, the one that I told you about, but also wanted to be part of what we do. They were like, we didn't know that there were Muslim women making film. I think we picked up our production designer, our head of costume, several PAs, one of whom now works with our company, and a few actors while we were there. So all of these Muslim women who were never going to do this, had written off any sort of fantasy of doing things like this, had the opportunity, and maybe that is going to spark something in them to do more and make more change. And we hope that even this podcast helps you to consider what you might do and what kind of change you might make. And if it does, I think we've done our job.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone just tuning in, you are watching The Muslim Street. I am Hina Lotus, your host, and I am interviewing Dr. NYLA. She has her own production company. We're just kind of talking about, like, you know, different avenues and different ways for the Muslim community to get involved, how to make a change. And I did actually want to let everyone know we do have a website. It is www.themuslimstreet.com. It is actually a global media project, which means we're open to all sorts of writers, articles, journalists. If you have a story, if you have an article, if you're working on a project, if you have any sort of political commentary, please email us, reach out to us on social media and let us know. Malik and I would love to take a look and see if that's something we could publish. So it's not, we're not restricted to certain journalists or anything of that nature. We want to definitely cultivate a community where Muslims have voices that are uncensored. We're Muslim journalism, for Muslims, by Muslims. So it's something that we're definitely working on. Dr. NYLA, actually, we would love to have an article from you or, your team.
You know what? You know what would be cool? Why don't we ask your viewers and listeners what type of topic they would want us to talk to them about? And we can give you some instructional information and walk you through that process. So if you're watching and you're interested, tell us what you want us to talk about, and we will write about that so that you guys can get further information about what we do. Go to our website, NewYorkLAProduction.org, and see what we're about, see how you want to involve yourself, message us, tell us what you do. We get so many these days, and as we grow and people get to know more about us, people who reach out to us, students, filmmakers, book clubs, things like that, where they're like, hey, we would really just want you to come and talk to us and tell our membership what you do. And I wonder sometimes, like, why do they want to talk to me? But really, it's about just sparking that creativity. And we would love to. We certainly will talk to you at least about Muslim women in the media and where we are, what we need to do, and where we want to go. So certainly check it out, and you'll see our stories in there too.
Yeah, definitely reach out to either NYLA and I on social media, or what you can do is actually put a comment on the specific YouTube video. If you look at the comments below, feel free to let us know what you kind of want to see Dr. NYLA talk about, and she will definitely submit that to the Muslim Street. You can also follow the Muslim Street we're on X. I have my own X account. It's at, and I'm going to spell it, INTREPIDLOTUS. We are also on Facebook. We have a really big group, growing as well, like a separate Muslim Street group. And then we also are, I believe, on Instagram as well. And we're trying to expand. So definitely make sure to follow us. And, Dr. NYLA, how can our audience actually find you on social media and contact you?
New York LA Production, NYLA Production, .org. That's our website. That's our Instagram. We're on X, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. We don't do dances, but maybe we'll start. So all of those social media platforms, we're there. YouTube as well. Reach out to us in any of those forms. DM us, email us. go through our website and leave us a message. We're a small company, but we certainly try our best to get back to everybody in a timely fashion. If you have anything interesting to say, good, bad, or ugly, we'll take it. And, see what we can do with it. I think it's really important to talk to not only people who are like, clapping for you and, trying to give you positive motivation to move forward. I think that all kinds of comments are important, including the negative ones that help you to know what the other side is thinking, so that you can have a better perspective of where they're coming from, and then be able to speak to them from that perspective. And that's how you make change. I think when we talk at people, it doesn't do a whole lot. But if you can tell them a story and that story can relate to them as well, I think that makes more change. Like they say, you can catch more bees with honey, right?
Right.
And I think that's true. And I'm not trying to catch any bees, but I think that you can calm a bee down and make them your friends. So, definitely reach out to us. We love to hear from, if you've got a story idea, some burning film that you have thought about your whole life but kept in your pocket, like, share it with us. Maybe we can help you make that a reality. Are you an actress or an actor who wants to get into the industry but has been too scared to think about that? Well, think about it and email us, and we'll see where we can get you in touch. We try very hard to connect those people with opportunities that are going to at least help them to experience the film industry and then make an informed choice about where they want to go with that. And if we can help, then certainly we're part of that process. We're part of what benefits them, and that benefits us. And that's what we do.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And actually, I had a couple of personal questions
Sure.
for you, just for fun.
All right, go for it.
So tell me what your favorite movie is.
Yeah, great question. Actually, I have a couple that are very, very odd. I love some of those older films, like A Clockwork Orange.
That's a good one, yeah.
It's Twisted, A Naked Lunch, which
Okay.
is a very odd book, and then created an extremely odd film. But I also love a great rom-com. And I love a beautiful Bollywood film. Some of those classics, but also some really old Bollywood films are probably my favorite. Ijazat is one of those. I mean, it's like, you guys are like, that's what maybe my grandma watched, but like,
Right.
It's a wonderful film. And it's really interesting if you go back into the history of Bollywood and even Pakistani films, there is some such original flavor there, and apart from some of those cliches and things like that that we sort of make fun of, especially our generation,
Right.
You know what I mean? Those people were just creative geniuses in some ways. If you look at the indie art film industry of Bollywood, India, and Pakistan, there is just some great stuff. There's Shabana Azmi. Anything Shabana Azmi is like amazing, and so much to learn from that kind of filmmaking. I also love Barbie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that as a person, I'm someone who likes to flavor many, many things. As a filmmaker, I think that all of those different experiences, the more people that I talk to, the more stories I get to know, they sort of push those creative juices and help you to create nuanced and original films. Each experience is what we want to see on TV or in films on the silver screen. I think whenever you think about a film that probably is really important to you, it's something that
it resonates deeply.
Yeah, made you cry, laugh, emote, helped you in a particular part of your life. And I think that there's so many movies out there that can do that at different parts of your life. So I wouldn't say there's really one, but certainly there are many that I like to visit and revisit sometimes, especially if something reminds me of that particular movie, and go back to it and go, oh yeah, I remember how that film made me feel at a particular time. So
is there like a specific movie or show that you watch that you know, inspired you to be where you are today? Like, you know, that like this was the movie or the show that created or helped you create kind of where you are.
So, you know, the funny answer is that I will give you a couple of names of shows which I love.
Okay.
But the reason that I do what I do is because there isn't one of those.
Oh, I love that answer.
Isn't that the problem? If I had a billion shows that I could, you know, look to and go, oh yeah, that's me. I can't even tell you, like, besides a South Asian film or an Iranian film or something from our neck of the woods.
Right.
There aren't a whole lot of movies as an American, which I am, and I'm Pakistani origin.
Right.
Okay. I went to med school in Pakistan. मुझे उर्दू भी आती है. मैं आपसे उर्दू में भी बात कर सकती हूँ. I have no problems with any of those things, but I really am American at the end of it. I'm Texan. I'm from Houston. You know, like I'm dirty South. You know, and that's where I grew up, and that's really where I belong. You know, but do I see myself on TV or in movies? I don't, and that's really the problem. So I would say that the film that inspired me, or the movie or TV show that inspired me to do what I'm doing, is the one that doesn't exist yet. And the closest that we've had is probably Rami.
Okay.
Mo. Anything Mindy Kaling. Right. You know, that's about it. Muslim matchmaker, you know, or Indian matchmaker.
Which a lot of these characters, believe it or not, there's a lot of, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of South Asians in media right now that are actually very Islamophobic.
Sure.
So I think when we watch them, we relate to them on a cultural level, but religiously, not so much. And politically, they don't really align with us in any capacity.
Yeah.
So
well,
I think,
Hina, that's one of the challenges too in Hollywood, is walking a fine but like winding line. Right. Because, and you know it.
Right.
You do too. You want to be able to say all the things you want to say and do all the things you want to do, but we have to make room first, you know, and Hollywood is no different. Frankly speaking, the film industry isn't different in that way, and that's why we're not there, right? But I think you have to look to our predecessors who have been able to make change and have successes, not always, but small successes sometimes, and have been able to over time make gradual and important change. And that comes from, for example, our friends and colleagues in the Black community, right? African Americans over a very long period have made significant amounts of change and improvement and by no means am I saying that that's complete. There's plenty of improvement that's required, but certainly there's a model to look at, to analyze, and find those positive portions that we can follow. They have made room for a lot of minorities in the film industry. And I think that you have to look to so many of those people who have made change. The Iranian American Hollywood culture is important. And although many of those people may not be outwardly or excessively Muslim, you know, there is still, they are still a very important Muslim portion of Hollywood. And I think, you know, it's important to remember that Islam is like flexible. It's a blade of grass. Like you have super conservative, uber liberal, and everything in between. And all those people, frankly, are Muslim, and we're not there to judge that, right? Like, la ilaha illallah. That's really all you've got to say, Muhammad Rasul. You know, and that's it. So, you know, good job. You're a Muslim. Now, where you go from there, that's up to you. And I think that there have been so many people who have made those changes for us, but there's lots to go. I really want to see the Muslim woman on TV owning her multicultural status and being able to be Muslim and American and all the other things she is in that show. And we deserve it. We're here, and we're going to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. Something that Malik actually taught me, who's, you know, my co-host and the person who started the Muslim Street, he always says systems of oppression will never give you the tools for liberation. And so one thing that should teach us is the tools of liberation are something that we have to give ourselves.
Sure.
And that's something that I think Dr. NYLA has done, and something that I'm also aspiring to do.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, if we are unhappy with certain things in the system, or like the narratives, the stories, the lack of representation, we have to take the initiative and put it into our own hands. I hope that, watching this episode, everyone has learned how, Dr. NYLA is like this trailblazer, is multifaceted, and has been able to juggle so many different aspects of, her family, religion, being part of the community, having her own production company, as well as being a doctor. Just saying that list was actually exhausting.
Wow, can you just come to my house and be my mirror of affirmation every morning?
We'll have to create a clip of that, and you have to play it every time, like your kids and your husband are there, like complaining. No, absolutely. But I think, like, at the end of the day, Dr. NYLA is, alhamdulillah, one of many. There's a multitude of women. Inshallah, we're able to have more women on, the Muslim street who are doing amazing things in society. I'd love to, bring them on and interview them. But I think she's a shining example.
Oh, thank you.
And, I'm very, very humbled to have her on. Again,
Likewise.
Please subscribe to the Muslim Street. We're almost at 100 subscribers, so if we can get there today, we'd be super humbled. Please, drop in the comments if you'd like to see Dr. NYLA again, if you have any ideas for the article you'd like for her to, watch. If you have any constructive criticism, we're open to that as well. But, Dr. NYLA, thank you so much. We're super humbled to have you on the Muslim Street. And, please catch us next Sunday. We will be live at 7:30. We have a super exciting episode planned for everyone. We have an author coming on. I'm going to keep it as a surprise. But that being said, please follow us on social media, slide into our DMs, look up, the websites. If you have anything written, please, submit that to us as well. We'd love to grow the Muslim Street and have it as a platform for the entire Ummah. But that being said, thank you so much for joining us.